All right, everybody. Happy New Year. It's 2024. It's going to be another crazy year. We have a whole predictions episode in the newsletter that we just released yesterday. There's a lot to read in there, but we'll get to the news right away. So I don't want to put too much overlapping news with this video and the newsletter. I would say just read the newsletter. A lot of stuff in there. I think it's like 55 pages. Hopefully it's entertaining. Try to insert some quips here and there. But let's kind of cover what's going on in the markets right now. I'll try not to do as much overlapping news, but there is one big action item today for you to check. And the first thing I want to point out in the macro is that there is a lot of capital rotation going on right now, right? So people didn't want to take profits at the end of last year. They might as well wait until today to sell a lot of the stuff that was up a lot so that they pay taxes on it next year, right? So what you're seeing is kind of capital rotation coming out from a lot of tech stocks. You see the top left-hand corner is tech. They're all red today. Apple down 3% is actually huge if you think about the market cap. And then money is going into healthcare and energy right now. Some of it's going into finance. But a lot of the healthcare stocks were up big this morning. I'm looking at it again now, and they are not as crazy as before. But, these are all pretty big percentages, especially for the market. Now, just covering a few bits of news on the crypto side. Celsius is shifting towards Bitcoin. I can't believe this is real. Is this real? Celsius is shifting to Bitcoin mining. I guess they figured the best time to do Bitcoin mining is when the rewards are getting cut in half. But Bitcoin is up a lot. It is up over 100% in the last year. So maybe that makes up for it. We also have India going on the offensive right now. Over the last week, there's been a couple of actions. There's been notices, and then now they're actually cutting off the URLs. You can't even go to these URLs anymore without VPN. So there's something going on with India. They are cutting out crypto. We talked about this in the newsletter, but the Prevention of Money Laundering Act has explicitly called out crypto and says that these exchanges do not comply. And I think what's going to happen is there will be more KYC checks, know your customer checks. Let me highlight here. And also, I think overall, it shouldn't actually be that big of a deal. So that I know China, when China did the ban, the markets crashed 30 to 50% each time. India is not responsible for as much of the volume as China was back in those days, right? Like more than like a half of all Bitcoin miners were in China at the time. So this is a very different sense of scale of how it will affect the market. So just want to say that. By the way, I've lost hearing in my left ear. It's kind of annoying. I'm just trying to see if I can hear it from sinus infections. But as you can see from this video versus last week, I am much better. Last week I was like dying on the camera. So hopefully there is a noticeable difference there. Okay, let's move on here. I think my computer is really slow today, so let's go. We're going to have to truck through this. Kathy Woods of the ARK Fund, they invested in ProShares Bitcoin ETF. They actually dumped their GBTC holdings, which is interesting because GBTC was like the discount window was closing, so they probably thought it was like a mini levered Bitcoin bet. But they also, they sold a lot of their stock. You can even see Coinbase is down 6% today, I believe, which is funny because MicroStrategy is up today, I think like 12%. So you have like two crypto-related stocks. One is up 12%, one down 6%. It's kind of weird, but I think, again, they need to take profits. I think ARK, they're very famous for being very aggressive, but they did not take profits during the 2021 bull run, and they got burnt for it. So I think they're just being more active. All right, now the ETF, it is upon us. We actually saw some crazy buying action last night on Bitcoin, and I think even altcoins are selling into Bitcoin now too. So we got to be prepared for this. This is probably in about a week or so where the Bitcoin ETF is going to get announced. JP Morgan has emerged as authorized participant in all of the ETFs, by the way. They're like so anti-Bitcoin, but now they're participants. Jane Street, I think Virtue, some other of these firms are now brokers for these ETFs. And yeah, Fidelity and BlackRock are the big names here. So just get ready. This is fireworks. This time next week, we might see Bitcoin at 50K, right? Like, let's see what happens if it gets approved. Now, this was also in the news. SBF will not face any more trials. They're dropping all the charges. That's because he's getting probably over 100 years. He's going to be in prison for the rest of his life. But there were some, $100 million were donated to political campaigns on both the Democrats and the Republicans. And like, that's kind of just getting swept under the rug now, which is kind of weird. Fine. I guess that's just life. This is how the world works. On the AI side, we have the New York Times suing OpenAI and Microsoft over the use of copyrighted work. Interestingly, they're going after like the hallucination angle, misinformation, and showing that a lot of this stuff does look very creepily similar to past articles. I'm trying to unplug my ears. This is really annoying. In other AI news, the NVIDIA podcast, one of the top 5 podcasts was yours truly. I was on this episode here. So I just want to point that out because that was really cool news. And then I saw a bit of news today. That's a very interesting piece of news, which is Canva. It's kind of like an Adobe competitor. They are doing a $1 billion stock sale for employees and investors. They're not actually raising any new funds. So they're doing a $1 billion stock sale. Values to start up at $26 billion. But what is, again, the news behind the news is that there does not need to be an IPO because all these people are cashing out through secondary sales now. So we might, if you've noticed, like IPOs have gotten bigger and bigger over time, and people are pushing out the raises, or like the fundraisers are getting bigger and bigger, right? Because the fund sizes are getting bigger and bigger. And you hold off on an IPO mainly because of like the regulatory perspective, like, oh, I don't want to report every quarter and do all this like accounting work. A lot of work to go public, right? And what happens now is IPOs are getting pushed more and more to the end, like bigger and bigger sizes. And now we even have this thing here, which is like a private sale, which is only for cashing out. It's not even a fundraise for the company. It's only for cashing out. And this is pushing it out even more and more, right? Which is very interesting. So this could be a theme, even though we predicted that this year we'll see a ton of IPOs. We probably still will, but this is another trend that's emerging where people just keep raising money, and then even the money raised is not even for the company, it's just for the employees, right? So I think this is going to keep happening. Now, this is the interesting thing from last night. We had Bitcoin surge up randomly last night. There were some articles about like, hey, it's leaked, like there's an ETF coming. I don't know if that's enough to really pump the price that much. But overall, like you can see, like the rest of the market followed Ethereum, and others are up like 2%, but they're up like roughly half of what Bitcoin was up last night. And again, we have the ETF imminent. It's probably going to be in the next 8 days. So everybody is kind of like, oh, it's last chance. And the number of sellers is very low. People don't want to sell their Bitcoin because they know there's an upcoming catalyst, right? So obviously this brings a risk of a sell the news event. The ETF gets announced, Bitcoin pops to 50K, and then it just starts trickling down because people are like, okay, what are we waiting for? Well, they're waiting for the halving, but that's like 4.5 months out. So people are like, maybe we don't want to wait that long. Wait, 2, 3, 4, 3.5 months out. My bad. So people are like, okay, let's kind of move this money to other assets, right? So we'll see if that happens. I do expect us to hit 50K though if the ETF is announced. I don't want to like jinx it by saying that it is. Everything else, by the way, is up in line with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Keep in mind of this like 7% and 6%. Everything else is kind of like following that as a barometer. What's interesting is Avalanche is down a lot because it was up so much the prior week. But these other ones are up like very, very similar amounts. Even Telegram starting to catch up. It's been like so quiet lately. ICP is a winner for this week of capital rotation. So you see coins like Avalanche selling out. They're trying to find that somewhere else to go. Even Solana is actually down since last week because it was up so much the prior week. So all this capital needs to go somewhere. It's found ICP. Some people have been asking me, is ICP, is this the thing now? Is it going to keep going up? And the answer is probably no. The answer is probably this is going to hit like $15. maybe even $20 if there's enough like narratives around it. And then that money is going to sell off, and then it's going to go to the next thing, right? And we have a list in the newsletter of what we think it could go to. You see, like you can even see like near protocol selling off. People don't really care about these projects at all. Now, Optimism, this was our coin of the week last week. It's up 16%, so it was a good pick. Obviously, we wish we picked ICP. We also said Injective is probably a little bit high now, which is selling off quite a bit now as well. Stacks, this is one of our newsletter picks. It's up 9% today. So we published a newsletter 131 like 2 days ago. So Stacks is doing very well since the newsletter published. Arbitrum, another thing we mentioned in the newsletter as something that you should buy in the in the capital rotation section, which is up a lot today alone. But this was also our coin of the week last week. Did very well because of the other stuff with Denkun, the Denkun update. Now, when you see these really scam projects pump, BSV, it's really bizarre. It's not a good sign, to be honest.